Welcome to the Tell Me Something Good podcast. Ranked by the International Association of Awesome Podcasts as the best podcast in the history of podcasts. Wait, is that a thing? I don't think that's a thing. Anyway, seeking to shine a light on all that is good in an ever-darkening world of negativity. Here's your host, Clint Swindall.
Hey, everybody. Clint Swindall here, and this is the Tell Me Something Good podcast, the show that is all about building a more positive world by overcoming negativity. It is my goal each episode to engage your mind, encourage your heart, or enlighten your soul. I am happy you're here. This is episode number 22 of the Tell Me Something Good podcast, brought to you by the good folks at Nutty Foodz, a family-owned and operated company striving to provide healthier snack options, ones that are approved by moms and loved by kids. If you're like me, you're going to want some snacks. We need some snacks that are actually good for us, and Nutty Foodz provides just that. I went to the doctor this past week for a regular checkup, got a clean bill of health, and on top of that, I lost about 4 pounds. While I'm sure part of that is eating better at home than I was on the road before the pandemic, I have no doubt it's from eating healthier snacks like those from Nutty Foodz. They are the home of Chocolata, these crazy good chocolate spreads. They make their products in small batches, and they're dedicated to providing the healthiest and most delicious chocolate spreads available. So come on, folks, get you some healthy, keto-friendly snacks. Check them out at nuttyfoodz.com. Here we are, friends, the 22nd episode of the podcast. If you've been with us before, welcome back. If you're a first-time listener, well, then welcome. Whether you stumbled on the podcast because you were looking for something positive, or you got here because someone recommended it, or you're just one of my friends who finally figured out how to get a podcast listening app on your phone, and I'm glad you're here. We gather up here every Tuesday to share some good stuff, whether it's talking about ways to overcome negativity, encouraging others to be more positive, or just sharing some good news. We spend about 20-30 minutes getting people focused on the good stuff. Then on Friday, we pop back in for a real quick celebration of all that is good with a special edition called Champagne Friday. If you haven't done so yet, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast so you'll get reminders when those new episodes are out. Those who are regular listeners know that we have different segments on different episodes of the podcast. One of the segments is dedicated to me answering any questions I get from listeners. I encourage everyone at the end of the podcast to jump over to findthegoodinlife.com to submit a question. Or if you prefer, you can just email me directly at clint@findthegoodinlife.com. I usually do that segment at the end of the episode after I've shared the message for the week. This week I'm moving that segment to the beginning because I got a great question that needs to be the focus of the episode. So let's get started with a segment called
Ask Clint Anything. 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 Anything.
Back in the very first episode of the podcast, I shared the origin of Tell Me Something Good. If you haven't heard it, I encourage you to take 20 minutes of your life and listen to it. It sets the foundation for this podcast. In that episode, I encouraged listeners to eliminate the typical "how are you doing" greeting and replace it with "tell me something good." I shared that I've been greeting people that way for 2 decades, and this is what I found. About half the people you challenge will just stare at you with no answer. Literally, no answer. About 30% will eagerly tell you something good, and the remaining 20%, well, they'll just share all the crud in their life. The question I received was based on that part of the episode. Some guy named Jason sent an email asking, if people want to be more positive, why is it that 50% of the people you challenge with "tell me something good" just stare at you with no answer? Straight up awesome question, Jason. Okay, listeners, this is the part of the episode where you get to participate. I want you to take a second and think about that question and see if you can answer it in your own head. Again, here is the question in a nutshell. Why do half the people challenged with Tell Me Something Good not have an answer? Take a few seconds and see if you know. So, what did you come up with? I have a few thoughts. The first is, I believe we're so accustomed to the standard "how are you doing" greeting that we're not prepared to share something good. The second is, I believe we spend so much time dealing with the crud in our lives all day, every day, that we don't have the good stuff top of mind. And third, I'm not sure most of us know how we define good. We're all searching for it. Call it what you want. Good, joy, contentment, happiness, delight. We all want it, and we all search for it. And then life comes along with ways to take it away. Tension, stress, panic, fear. While we recognize these bad things will get in the way, we just hope to get more good things than bad things to make it a good day. Look, we all want to have a good day. We'll start the day saying, I hope it's a good day. And apparently we want others to have them too, because we're constantly telling others to have a good day. When we get to the end of the day, we'll even ask others, did you have a good day? We can normally assign a good or bad designation to a day very quickly based on an overall feeling. I wonder sometimes if we know what made something a good day. Sure, some days it's obvious. If you've been looking for a new job and you got a call offering you a job starting tomorrow, you'll likely call that a good day. If you've been trying to sell your house and your realtor calls with a full price offer, you'll most likely call that a good day too. I get it. Those are obvious. What about those days when significant things don't happen? How do you arrive at calling a day, quote unquote, good? And perhaps more importantly, why is it important? Well, it's important because it ties directly to your happiness, or what is known in the positive psychology world as subjective well-being. According to a guy named Dr. Ed Diner, an American psychologist, professor, and author, subjective well-being is the evaluation of one's life, as in evaluating each day whether it was good or not. He believes a person with a high level of subjective well-being is a person with a high level of satisfaction with their life, and one who experiences more positive things than negative things in their life. In very simple terms, these people are very happy. In order to evaluate your life, and evaluate it every day in a way that can help you determine if it was good or not, you have to know how you define good. And why is that important? Because you have to be able to repeat those things that made it good. You must be intentional. According to research, 50% of the variation in your subjective well-being is genetics, and 10% is due to circumstantial factors, stuff that just happens to you. If that is true, you control 40% of your well-being. And if that's all you control, then it's the only part you have the ability to improve. In order to improve it, you must be intentional about it. So what does that look like? It means you have to do those things that happy people do and think those things that happy people think. Sounds incredibly simple, doesn't it? Well, it would be if it were the same for all of us, but it's not. What makes you happy on any given day and what makes me happy on any given day may be completely different. You may say your day started great because you sat on the patio by yourself drinking coffee, enjoying complete solitude as you thought about nothing but how beautiful the sunrise was. I may say my day started great because I sat on the patio with my wife drinking coffee, talking about all the things we were going to get done. You may say your day ended great because you completed an energizing 5-mile run. And I may say my day ended great because I kicked off my shoes and enjoyed a glass of wine. Different things make us happy. While this is going to sound incredibly obvious, here goes. In order to improve your subjective well-being, you have to deliberately do more of what makes you happy. But in order to do that, you have to know exactly what makes you happy. How often have you stopped to seriously consider what makes for a good day? The fact that 50% of people can't tell you something good indicates there's a chance we don't really know what makes us happy. And then, as a quick side note, even when we do know what makes us happy, it doesn't matter for long because of something I wrote about in my upcoming book titled Tell Me Something Good. It's called hedonic adaptation, a concept that whether we experience good things that make us happy or bad things that make us sad, we all return to a base level of happiness. It's an interesting concept I'll share in a future episode of the podcast. For now, let's just stay focused on figuring out what makes us happy. When you get to the end of a day and say, that was a good day, what specific activities, events, and circumstances contributed to that evaluation? While every day may include different things, I'm guessing there are some common things that happen that make you happy. Look, I don't want you to ever be that person who can't think of something good to share because you haven't identified what specific things really make you happy every day. So I'm going to challenge you to do something this week. Rather than ending this episode with a challenge, as I do every episode for those of you joining us for the first time, I'm going to give you the challenge with a warning. This challenge is going to require you to do something every day for a week. If you really want to let this podcast have a positive impact in your life, then from time to time, you're going to have to commit to doing a little more than just listening. And this is one of those times. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to analyze your daily activities for 1 week in order to determine those specific activities, events, and circumstances that led you to identify a day as good. Beyond just identifying them, I want you to write them down every day. Put a notepad on your desk. Open a notes page on your phone. Write it in your journal if you're a journaling person, wherever you need to do it. At the end of the day, I want you to do 3 things. 1, rate the overall day. Give it 1 of 5 ratings. Incredible day, good day, neutral day, bad day, or horrible day. Again, 1 of 5 ratings. Incredible day, good day, neutral day, bad day, or horrible day. Then 2, document the specific, repeatable things that happened that you considered good. And by the way, even if you declare it to be a neutral day or a bad day or even a horrible day, identify the handful of specific, repeatable good things that happened on those days. Even the worst days have something good. And 3, document the specific, repeatable things that happened to you that you considered bad. And by the way, even if you declare it to be an incredible day or a good day or a neutral day, identify the handful of specific, repeatable bad things that happened. Even the best days have some crud. At the end of 7 days, I want you to look back to see which days were better than others, which days were worse than others. Then, look at what you wrote down about those days to identify patterns and to identify what specific activities, events, and circumstances contributed to a positive evaluation of a day. Then, look at what you wrote down about those days to identify what specific activities, events, and circumstances contributed to a negative evaluation of the day. And then, to bring it all together, reflect on this final question. What can I do or not do to have more days in which I engage in the activities that make for a good day? While I know it sounds simple, I think you just may be amazed at the easy things you can do to enhance your day to the point that you have more good days and less bad days. And in the end, become the person who can respond immediately, without hesitation, to the challenge of Tell Me Something Good.
You're listening to Tell Me Something Good with Clint Swindall.
I did a bad thing this morning. I don't like to admit it. Although this isn't a confessional, I feel better when I just get it out. It was awful. and I'm not proud of it. When I first woke up this morning, are you ready? I turned on the news. I know. Nothing good can ever come from that. Every now and then, I slip up. To get past it, I go in search of something good to scrub my mind of the negativity. And when I find it, I share it with you good people in this next segment called
Good News from Around the World.
Do you remember when the aisles of grocery stores were emptied of toilet paper and other staples at the beginning of the pandemic? Nurse Stacy Mason recalls seeing her fellow healthcare workers finishing up long shifts caring for the sick in ICU, only to find the sundries they needed for their families, like diapers and sanitary wipes, couldn't be found anywhere. The Virginia mother of two had an idea. She could start a pantry in her intensive care unit. Then staff could share any extras they had with their colleagues. The pantry took off immediately. Inspired by its success, Stacy then thought to herself, if sharing is working at this small scale, couldn't it work for all of Mary Washington Healthcare? For her brilliant launching of such a vital resource in her community, she's been recognized as a hometown hero of her county. These days, it's not just Stacy working on the volunteering effort. An entire Mary Washington Hospital team pantry has come together. Their mantra for the donations initiative? Give what you can, take what you need. Toothpaste and other basic toiletries that hospital workers just don't have time to shop for often show up as donations. Baby products are also typically available, as are non-perishable food items, no questions asked. Mason tells the Freelance Star, now that summer has come, we're seeing some fresh produce come in, items grown in people's gardens, and that's really neat. There are plenty of people who come through and take advantage of the pantry who are now in single-income families because of the virus, she said. There are also others who have lost a loved one and are facing different financial realities, and staffers who aren't working the number of hours they once did. The pantry has made a big difference in people's lives. We know that many of our associates' families are feeling the economic impacts of coronavirus, Mary Washington Healthcare posted on Facebook, and it's nurses like Stacy Mason who demonstrate why 2020 is the year of the nurse. And then there's this. Philadelphia wants to ensure that all its K-12 students have internet access, so they have what they need to learn remotely during the pandemic, especially as the city's schools will remain closed to in-person classes this fall. Since the coronavirus forced the school closures this spring, the city has been working with foundations and partners to mobilize funding that will provide broadband internet access for 35,000 kids. And now they've unveiled a program that will make it happen. Phil Connected will connect eligible student households with 2 years of high-speed internet without any out-of-pocket expenses or installation fees. Using Comcast's Internet Essentials program, or a high-speed mobile hotspot for families who are housing insecure, the program will also ensure K-12 public school students have the devices they need, such as a laptop or a tablet, and also tech support to keep it all running smoothly. The Philadelphia School District recently distributed over 128,000 devices to students who lack them at home. The school district and charter schools will continue to work with schools and families to make sure they have the resources they need to succeed. Phil Connected is the first stage of the city's larger digital equity initiative to support digital literacy and access for all Philadelphia residents. The bulk of the funding is being provided by private foundations, including $7 million from the Comcast NBC Universal Foundation, $1 million each from the William Penn Foundation and Philadelphia School Partnership, and others. The city will also use $2 million in local CARES Act funding without dipping into its general fund, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer. Mayor Jim Kenney said it was a transformational moment triggered by the pandemic, and the program will go a long way to closing the digital divide. And that, my friends, is some good news from around the world. Before I end this episode with the challenge, I want to remind you that this episode of Tell Me Something Good has been brought to you by the good folks over at Nutty Foodz, a family-owned and operated company striving to provide healthier snack options, ones that are approved by moms and loved by kids. If you haven't checked them out yet, you need to jump over to nuttyfoodz.com to see all they have to offer. In addition to some great things to buy, they have some incredible recipes you need to see. Get over there and check it out. Again, they're at nuttyfoodz.com. And now the challenge. For the first time ever, I gave you a challenge earlier in the episode. While it would be easiest enough just to leave it at that, I want to take it a step further. Before you come back for the next episode, I challenge you to complete the challenge I issued earlier in this episode. It's so easy to just listen to a podcast as we're working out, driving in the car, taking our morning walk, wherever you may be listening. While there's power in listening, real-life enhancements come from doing something different than you were doing before. So, I challenge you to complete the challenge. Document every day the specific things that make your days good or bad. Then complete the entire challenge. It's a commitment I know will have a positive impact in your life as you determine what specific things make you happy, and then commit to repeating those in the future. Well, that's all for today's episode of the Tell Me Something Good podcast. I sure hope you'll join us again next week. In the meantime, be listening for our special episode of Champagne Friday. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Also, if you can, leave me a rating and review. Your support can help someone else as we work to spread positivity to the world. If you have a question for the podcast, you want to share your good stuff, or need to find the links to join us on social media, jump over to findthegoodinlife.com. You'll find all you need right there on the front page. Thanks for listening. Until next week, I'll be praying for God to bless you in mighty ways. Now, get out there and love on somebody.
You've been listening to the Tell Me Something Good podcast. The content of the podcast is meant to engage, encourage, and enlighten you to become more positive. It's not meant to diagnose, treat, or replace the personalized care provided by a trained professional. If you're struggling with depression or mental health issues, please reach out to a counselor for diagnosis and treatment. Until next time, be positive, people.